Hey ho friends, Dana here. I this is brand new for me, so this is an experiment. My first YouTube live. Of course, I do Facebook lives semi-regularly, and yeah, this is new, so we're going to see how the vibe is here. Whether or not we get any visitors to this as a brand new exploration between me and you, my audience. I'm hoping some of you will drop on so I can make sure that my audio is working. Fortunately, we have lawnmowers, and the challenge, of course, we all experience is that when we work from home, life likes to flow, weave its way into our business life. So, lucky what I do for work is often entangled with personal life. So, here we are. So, my name is Dana. Some refer to me as Dana Spirit Butterfly. I am a spirit channel. I do a number of reading techniques, some of which I teach in a course called the Clairs, which is psychic language discernment. We are all psychic, and so we all have the capacity to tune in to vibratory information via our subtle senses, what I call the spidey senses, but is actually technically called the clairs, and to translate it via your intuition. And this is what psychics do. We take energetic information and we translate it for the purposes of communicating that to someone else who may need some support, and also some awareness that we are way beyond just the physical reality. And I personally was a skeptic way before I started doing this. This was something that I dived into much later in my own life. It's 8 years of my life now that I've been in this experience, and it's been a revelation, I can tell you. And I get the sense, and I'm about to say the word spirit, just so that you know, when I use the term spirit, spirit is a very broad term that we use to refer to a number of different energies or entities, individualized consciousnesses, if you will. And those consciousnesses flow through me as I channel. Also, when I channel spirit, I may also just be channeling my own human spirit, because there is a part of us that needs to be voiced, and in voicing my human self, connection can be established and we can share an experience that is healing. And so, primarily, we do readings as a form of healing, and the healing transcends that which is available through the normal conversation we may have as humans. And so, as I practice this as a reader, you won't find me doing this to you in public space if you meet me on the street or through a social experience, because this stuff is something that is most potent when it's done in sacred or held space. And so I reserve the energy of this. I apply a boundary system around it to make sure that when we're in this seat of exploration with the psychic energy, that it's actually held for you. And it's also specifically to you. So I'm just going to lose my glasses to read physical loud and clear. Thank you, Holistic Mojo. Thank you for saying hello. If you have any questions, I am here to read for you. If you just want a card or just a little bit of guidance, that's okay too. We will start with what we call a collective reading, which is basically tuning into the energy of those that are intended to watch this video. I, the human me, doesn't need to know who that is in order to do and offer a service of a collective reading, but we're tuning into the collective frequency for the purposes of communicating to you a message from spirit. And yes, spirit, those of you who are curious, it does involve spirit guides. It can involve deceased loved ones that you may have known in the physical land and passed away, or ancestors that you may not have known in the physical world that come through. We don't always step into mediumship as a channel because it's not always needed. Sometimes what is needed is simply the human interface, which is where psychic energy is translated. Psychic being a more grounded space, clairvoyance being a type of psychic language discernment, which means clear seeing. And so I'm going to do what's a basically Spidey Sense channel for you today. We actually did a channel to channel, which is from a higher consciousness yesterday in Facebook land. So if you are wanting to get a little bit more information around how this stuff works and how it might work for you, then please like my Facebook page, and also make sure that you click following in Facebook, and for YouTube, I appreciate it if you could subscribe and maybe click the bell for notifications. So psychic senses, the first thing as a spirit channel that I'm offering you is the collective. Those of you who are tuning into this video, whether now in this moment or sometime later, and the first thing that I tuned into is actually a banana. And so I'm going to tune into banana. And banana is actually a form of endearment that a lot of my friends and family use to call me Dana Banana, as in it rhymes. And so the first message I actually feel like I want to give to you is this time of year is really specifically, it's a specific time, is holiday season. So there's a lot of anxiety that people that arises to the surface in people's experience that relates to their association with their childhood, their association with family gatherings or not family gatherings. And so when I tune in to Dana Banana, the message that I want to give to you is actually that when I was a child, the name didn't sit well with me. I didn't like being called banana. I actually felt like it was an insult. But as I got older, I started to feel a sentimentality towards the name. And when my friends and family would still call me banana, it would resonate in a way that would make me feel a sense of connection. And so as I land on connection, the word I feel is kind of dropping into connection. And I get a sense of a reminder by my clear cognizance that it's also useful to remind ourselves that connection is actually a necessary human desire. We all desire some level of connection. And the reason why we desire a level of connection is simply because we are separated when we incarnate into a physical vehicle that limits our ability to see things and limits our ability to perceive and sense and know things. And partially the reason why I'm a big fan of teaching the clairs and psychic language discernment is to stretch ourselves out of this reality that says that we are separated and that we are disconnected by being in physical form, and the physical is the only thing that's real. We will hopefully across this channel and across my channels demonstrate to you that there's a whole hell of a lot more to this reality than what it is that is offered through the physical vehicle and through your mind and its ability to perceive the world. But we need to acknowledge first that the mind has its limitations in order to be able to stretch the boundary system that tells us that we're either right or wrong, or something is either true or untrue, because a truth for you may not be the truth for someone else. And when I keep the door open to that possibility, my relationships tend to get easier. And so as I say that, relationships, I fall in relationships, I see a bell ringing in my mind, and I just do that physically to anchor the energy a little bit further. For those of you who are already doing some work in channeling, want to know a little bit more about how to anchor energy to get more deeper and richer information. But as I'm ringing the bell, there's a knowledge that I have that love comes in a variety of forms. And so when we're talking about connection and we're talking about relationships, we are hitting a time space continuum moment on the planet as a collective consciousness on the planet, where we're reassessing what relationships mean. We're reassessing the nature of how to connect with each other. Obviously, the global pandemic situation has offered us an excuse, if you will, to ask questions around how I communicate and how I connect with other individuals. These types of things all are leading somewhere. And so there's a wave of momentum that our collective consciousness is receiving at the moment, which is about reassessing the nature of relationships and what they mean for us. And so it's vitally important that you communicate with yourself around how your relationships are structured and how your relationships work for you, and to start the dialogue, understanding that love is a dialogue. It's not simply a feeling and a sensation like has been glamorized by romance novels and TV. We are a lot more complex than that. And indeed, we can actually experience a lot more anxiety around love if we just assume that the only thing that matters in love is that feeling and that sensation. The feeling in itself is the beginning. It's important for sure, but it's not the true essence of the human experience. And I feel the word, I hear the word compassion in my mind that spirit's given me. It definitely was a spiritually inspired word. I felt that being pushed through for me. And I feel again a sense of a reminder. The compassion as an energy, there's a reason why it's on the planet at the moment. As a concept in the archetypal grids of associated meaning, compassion is a vibration. Compassion is a healer, but it's necessary because we have separation, and it's necessary because we have suffering on the planet. If we didn't have some form of suffering, there would be no point in there. Like compassion would have no point, no place to land. We express compassion because, yeah, arguably you could say it's the right thing when someone's suffering. We want to be a force of love, we want to be a force of balance, but also compassion as an energy is a healing vibration that brings people back into love space, which is a harmonizer. And so whenever someone's suffering and they're in their experience, and this is relevant, spirit is explaining to me this is relevant because we are heading into the seasonal, or we're already in the seasonal holiday season. And so this time of year there is a lot of conflict that comes up, and there is a lot of distrust for other human beings, particularly if they're family members and you have a history of conflict. That we're coming into a time period where there's more conflict likely because there's a lot more pressure on people, particularly financially, because there's pressure to have money in the bank to spend on others so that we can gift. And there's that whole paradigm in reference to stress associated with Christmas. But the reason why we mention this is because compassion as a harmonizer is actually about stepping back and seeing a bigger picture and recognizing that when you're in the heat of, some form of compression between you and someone else where it just doesn't feel right, it actually is often an indication that on some level there's suffering between us, some form of suffering. And that suffering could be an internal mental suffering that is basically the product of me being triggered by a situation that reminds me of something that happened in the past that I don't want to repeat. And in that moment, I can feel distressed. And in that moment, I really want to gift myself with compassion. That the reason why I feel frustrated and sad, maybe, or like I want to dominate and control things, or a lot of these visceral kind of denser layers that rise to the surface when we're in distress, they're usually signifying something that's deeper, usually signifying something that is beyond you in this now moment to deal with. And when that comes up, the best friend that you have is not to suppress it and deny it. It's certainly not to express it in violent ways so that other people can be confronted with this energy that they can't necessarily, or they don't have the resources to deal with. Because I don't know about you, but most of my family members certainly don't have this cultivated awareness of energy, beautiful people that they are, compassionate and loving that they are, but they often feel tense when I express myself something that makes me feel uncomfortable. They feel tense, and sometimes, at least in the past, they have projected their resistance at me and their frustration through words that have made me feel bad to have those feelings in the first place. And so Christmas often for a number of us can be this suppressive energy where we feel things aren't quite right. We feel like things aren't happy and joyous like it pretends to be, and we'll feel it under the surface. And the noticing of that's really important. Noticing if that is great. Hooray! You're noticing yourself. Let's celebrate the fact that you're actually listening to what's going on with you. This is really important. And a part of all of our healing is to listen to that feeling, to communicate that in a dialogue, though, that allows other people to help us heal, can be complex. I want to use the term complex rather than challenging, because challenging suggests that there's a problem in that. And I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel like there's a communication here that's suggesting that any of this is wrong or bad, because this is the human condition. and we're all incarnated with these limited awarenesses, with these perspectives that come out from our own unique eyes, where what I say as a perspective doesn't need to match someone else's, because they've had different life experiences and they have different triggers, right? If I can appreciate that fact in the moment of the distress, of the anxiety, of the feeling of this is not okay with me, then I can step back a little bit and allow some space for me to communicate in a gentler way and a softer way. And this is less confronting to the other person and less likely to trigger them. A triggered person is usually something that they need to deal with, is something that they need to learn to manage and to heal through. But compassion is our response to the fact that this energy is on the planet. So I get the sense of wrapping up. If you are online and you do have a question, please ask your question. I'd like to read for you. At the moment, I'm not getting any more comments other than one that I saw just to recognize that you could hear me, which is great. And so if you do have a question, please ask. As I said, this is an experiment and I'm here to read for you. We had a number of people on the Facebook call yesterday, and we did quite a good amount of reading for them. So if you'd like to watch a demonstration of readings that are live, I mean, obviously it's not face to face in this environment. If you'd like the face to face experience, then please visit my website, which is www.danaspiritbutterfly.com. That's DANA spiritbutterfly.com. And you're welcome to book a session. We do intend to do these, as I said, weekly across December, partially because it's needed and also because we really want to be seen. We really want this stuff to be seen so that you can maybe deeply appreciate or even shallowly appreciate that there's this stuff out here, because it's actually quite valuable and we all have the ability to do that. I'm struggling with anxiety around finding housing in my new country of Sweden. Beautiful. I mean, not beautiful that you're struggling, love, but let's tune in for you. All right. So the first word I landed is in Sweden. So I just want to acknowledge that when you move to a new country, there's obviously language barriers and situations where you need to kind of get up to speed with the technology that's offered on the ground. I also get a sense of a mother wound for you. When I feel a mother wound, I actually feel this sense of being disconnected from the physical plane. So I feel like the reasons why you moved may have been that you weren't feeling at home where you were, or that somehow you've actually reached Sweden because you actually need a little bit more kind of support. And that support wasn't available where you were. So I get the sense that landing in Sweden, there is a connection to a mother energy or a frequency of what we call her. And when we use the term her, we're talking about usually an emotional reconnect and a reconnect to that feeling safe in my body. And so in Sweden, I feel again, I get drawn to Sweden. Sweden's really important. I'm reminded I have a friend of mine who was born and raised in Sweden, and Sweden is quite and I should probably say he's ethnically Chinese. So obviously, it's a very different kind of energy of being born and raised in Sweden and being ethnically Chinese. But what I remember, because spirit is triggering my memory around this, is that there's a certain amount of acceptance for difference in Sweden, and I feel like where you've left, there wasn't that same amount of acceptance. And so a lot of the anxiety that you're feeling, partially because you're ungrounded, it takes a little while to settle in a foreign country where you're not necessarily feeling safe and well in your own body because of the mother wound, because of that disconnect, because of that feeling that maybe you're not able to communicate appropriately emotionally to be able to feel what we call energy running properly. Because we are a mind and we are a spirit and we are emotions and a physical body, and often we cultivate language which is the rationality of existence. So we think a lot about stuff and we have opinions about stuff, but often it sits in the mental mind mapping system. And the feeling I get, honey, is that you're dropping more into your emotional self and making space available to do that, because back where you were, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for you to communicate that. And so I'm being drawn back to Sweden and how Sweden is quite open and there's a lot of spiritual groups there to support you with your healing and move forward. So I feel like a recommendation with you, love, is to find a spiritual group that's active and grounded. And it doesn't have to be anything specifically terrorizing. So don't necessarily feel like you need to put yourself in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, but baby steps moving forwards, drop into maybe a circle, a sister circle, or whatever it is that you feel attracted to. Circle work can be tough for some, but it's an automatic community. Often people are attracted to circles. And we're talking about spiritual development circles, so that comes in a variety of forms. But if you move forwards towards that energy, you'll reconnect with a certain amount of expats. And I'm guessing, I feel like your native language is English. And so I get the sense that there's a lot of English speaking spirituality that's available there where you can drop in and actually be held, and you'll receive that assistance to integrate into Sweden. I get the term 6 years, that 6 years is essentially how long you're planning to stay. I don't know if you know that yet, but I get the sense 6 years is like a long period in Sweden, and that's actually important for your growth and your evolution and your healing. So I hope that I can leave that with you, dear. Thank you so much for your comment. And yeah, feel free to offer one if you feel like that resonates. But I gift that to you as some information for you to support yourself and your healing. I'm getting assurances. You're fine, darling. The anxiety is often when we get stuck in the mind, and that, as we said, the energy's not running properly. And so, a really great way to kind of adjust that is to recognize yourself. And as we were talking before about compassion, is to really just hold yourself with compassion. It goes a long way as a vibration and as an approach to perceiving yourself for the purposes of healing the trauma and the devastation. So I send you my love and my healing, and I also send my love and healing to those of you who are on this video maybe after the event. As I said, I'll be back online again this time next week, and I'll be online via Facebook next week as well to offer another reading. We also did some light language on Facebook, so if that interests you and you're curious as to what that is, then maybe drop into my Facebook page, which is Dana Spirit Butterfly. So it's pretty easy to find. Just search Dana Spirit Butterfly, and it should be available there and pretty easy for you to find. So I like to send my viewers kisses. Just remind you that love is there and available to you. There's a lot of it around. There's a lot more than you might think when you're trapped and locked in your own reality. The mind is a harsh taskmaster. So if I get stuck there, I often cannot perceive love, and I often notice disconnect. So the antithesis of disconnect is actually reconnect, which is dropping back into feeling and sensing and knowing and being available for yourself on this level. Hey Shay, thanks for saying hi, honey. We're about to sign off. I just started. Yeah, all right. Spirit is saying I'll happily tune in for you. And this is because I can't really read without my glasses, but I don't like to read spiritually with my glasses on. I've started a new relationship and I'm finding myself contracting. Okay, so what I get the sense of, and you have a grandmother in spirit on your father's side that's close with you right now. So just to affirm that you're actually being protected by spirit, your grandmother on your father's side specifically. So, and I feel like she may have been overseas or and when she passed, just so that you know that that's the grandmother I feel like we're talking about. Sometimes I get them confused, but I feel like this is father's mother, specifically overseas, possibly passed while she was still overseas. So just to affirm, Australian girl, if I get the sense right, I get the sense that at the moment you're pretty easy to be in a relationship with. So we want to kind of flag that with you. And when we say easy, you're easygoing, and love is a virtue that you hold quite high. And so when you hold love as a virtue that's quite high, you naturally attract to you a certain amount of wounding. And the wounding in itself, sometimes with women specifically, of course, I speak for myself, but with women, energy, sometimes when we step ourselves into a loving environment and we haven't been with love for a while, for whatever reason, when we step into a loving environment, there's a certain amount of purging of energy that happens. And the purging in itself is a part of the healing process. But unfortunately, when you're holding a loving vibration, it can be projected at you. And so, with regards to this particular woman, I feel like you're together because she seeks the healing energy that you carry, and that's really beautiful. But I get the sense also that maybe she's not there for the reasons that you want her to be there. And that in itself is going to be something that I get the sense actually that this has happened to you in the past. So I feel like this may actually be something that's recurring, which is where you're kind of feeling like you maybe don't want to dive in because you don't really want to be in that type of relationship where it's all about someone else and it's all about their drama. I get the sense that that's actually a mother wound for you. That's something that's actually about you and your connection to your mum. And I get the sense that you're okay with your relationship with your mum. And in fact, I think we've had a conversation around that. But I get the sense that actually spirit is reminding me we all have a mother wound, whether we have a great relationship with our mums or not. We all have one. It's just a different, like it comes up in different ways, right? Also, I'm being reminded that as we're on the healer pathway for you, this naturally means that your whole purpose here is to be a harmonizer of other people's drama and also, of course, your own in reflection. And so there's a certain amount of, I got the word manning up, that you actually feel a bit of pressure to do. And it's actually a mantle that you wield quite well. I feel like you like the idea of stepping into the masculine presence and to be that masculine space holder. And indeed, I've already witnessed that experience with you. So I know that that's great for you, and a natural alignment with you on a personal level. But I get the sense that when it comes to being with women, there's a certain amount of energy where you're like, I want to man up, but I don't want to have to take responsibility for the mess. And you don't have to take responsibility for the mess is the answer that we get. You never have to, and you've never had to, but it is actually a conscious choice that you're making to step into that role because you actually believe in it. And so we're saying this not because you don't know this. We're saying this to remind you that this is a factor in the situation, of this particular woman. So I get the sense thumbs up from grandma. I get the sense of thumbs up because you're on the right path. I get the sense that you're actually in the right profession and that you're actually still in service. You've always been, she's telling me you've been that way since you were a kid. You've always been a loving man and always compassionately desiring to be with women. And like juicy, I get the sense of juiciness. You love the juiciness of a woman, and that juiciness is ready for you in this woman. But the resistance is, as we say, you don't really want to take on the drama and the load. But we're saying to you, you don't have to. So see how this sits with your own boundary system. The boundary system is being triggered. It's actually a mother wound for you. So I hope I can leave that with you and that it resonates, my sweet. I really appreciate you tuning in and tuning into the work that I do. Hey, Carolyn, thank you for my rose. You know I love roses. Let me know if you have any questions, Lovey. I get the sense that Spirit just wants to say healing. You're such a good healer. You're such a good healer. And I get the sense that assistance is coming. So I feel like your son is still battling through his own stuff, and that's being resolved for you. So I feel like I want to say that to you, love. You haven't asked me a question. All right, my friends. Where do I want to go with this? Being reminded of the banana. So I think I'm probably just going to summarize what I was saying before with banana. The things that happen in our past is often a source of drama. It's often the source of resistance, of distress. It's often also the seedbed for a lot of romance. And so it's easy for us to take something that's happened in the past and to romance it in our now moment in our mind to create a potential for drama in the future. That's what I want to say. And it's not worth anybody's time to do that because the future is not fixed, but also the future is more unpredictable than ever from the mental mind mapping systems perspective, because of things being tipped upside down and life changing. And I'm getting assurances from our collective frequency that the healing that we need is being provided, and this whole journey is about healing. Trauma in itself and the stress is usually a symptom of being stretched too quickly, too fast, without feeling like I'm equipped to work through the stress. And we are in this moment being asked to relive some distress. And the environmental factors at the moment collectively are creating a dynamic so that we have to look at past relational paradigms in order to reinvest in new ones. And in order to reinvest in new ones, we need to dialogue and go through a process that often relates to a grief process or a grieving process of letting go of that which was in order to celebrate that which is available now. And this, no matter what it is that's happening in an environment, is true always for us on a soul level. We are here for the learning, for the lessons, and this often comes through the drama of healing trauma. Drama, we used to say it's a choice. In a fashion, it is and it isn't. Just like we have a fixed blueprint and a divine plan, and we also don't. There's a certain amount of free will and a certain amount of decision makings that allows us to make a decision at a junction of two roads. And right now, we're employing you. Actually, the Great Oneness is imploring you to stay grounded through your process. And grounding takes practices that ground you. And for some of you, that might be walking. But if you're walking outside and you're falling in love with a beautiful planet that's what have you, this can also actually be ungrounding rather than grounding. There's a way of grounding that brings you back to the earth to keep you present with the earth so that you can show up to the sensations and the dialogue, the conversation that's going on in your actual energy field. And so it takes bravery sometimes and it can be quite confronting to be brutally honest with the self and what it is that's brewing in my energy field. And a lot of this dialogue manifests in chatter in the mind, but the chatter in the mind can also become quite nonsensical and ungrounded when the energy isn't run through the body properly. Which is why at this moment there's a lot of new opportunities that are arising that a lot of people aren't able to see because they're stuck in the old paradigm and they keep trying to return to it. And it's actually not possible anymore for us to return to the old world. The old world ceased to exist the moment that we started the lockdowns. So there is no going backwards, unfortunately, but there's certainly a lot of gifts moving forwards. Hey, Christina, thanks for saying hi. I'd like to know what specific changes are coming in for Ivan and me in the next 3 months. Cool. I get 3 months is a really long time for you because at the moment you're micromanaging your energy. And I want to kind of explain that maybe in a language that might help you understand a bit better. Micromanaging energy would be where I'm so fixated on things being right or wrong that I'm always in what we call a hypervigilant state, which means that I'm always looking for problems to solve. I'm always looking for problems to solve. And a part of this, sometimes we're contracted to have that kind of a life where we're just looking for problems to solve because it's a part of our archetypes, it's a part of our frequency and our DNA blueprint. And you certainly have the warrior archetype, but the play on words is warrior and warrior. That which is going into battle to achieve and to win the race, and that which is you sitting at home worrying about things. And the two, there are similar, like there are parallels, there's similarities between the two. And so we're saying, please bring in some breath practice into your daily routine. And what that looks like I've got a video on my YouTube channel that is a 5-minute breath technique. There's a number of them actually. There's also a 4, 7, 8 breath that we're going to ask you to bring that in. We're talking about that in reference to the 3-month question, mostly because we just want you to align yourself with a more grounded position for you, because what's coming for you is actually not bad, but when you're ungrounded and you're not feeling like you can anchor your energy and presence, you find problems to solve. and the problems add to a pile of stress that isn't needed by you because you've got a lot of pressure on you already. So we don't need to amplify the pressure in your life to make the next 3 months feel like it takes ages to get through. I get assurance. I actually got the word assurance. I assure you that you and your son are fine. Ivan is going through a growth spurt. If you know anything about the Wonder Weeks, some people know what the Wonder Weeks are. I was given the word Wonder Weeks, but it refers to a book. In fact, you can probably Google the Wonder Weeks. They actually relate to developmental pathways of babies, and how they go through these periods where developmentally on certain weeks they just have a shit time, and on other weeks they seem to be fine, and you get this variance in their experience of life because they're going through developmental milestones. And so bringing this back to Ivan, I know he's not a baby anymore, but I get the sense that Ivan is still going through growth spurts enough to still be experiencing this. So there's times where he has a lot of resistance to what's going on with you. I don't know if you're considering moving. I feel like there's a sense of moving, if not house or job, like there's a change that's happening in the next 3 months that is important to mention. And I feel like he's maybe anxious about whatever that change is. But the anxiety in itself, they're saying, is a reflection of you. And it can be really difficult to own when we have kids in our lives who are going through developmental milestones, that somehow there may be actually a reflectivity for us. And so we all believe, and what Spirit's always talking to us about, is to reassure our system as an individual that we have a lot more resources than we think we do. When I'm stuck in the mind, I find it difficult to see because I feel disconnected from where my true wealth lies. And so the breath techniques actually bring you back into present moment. They actually also bring you into the chest, which is where your heart is, where you can hear a different voice. And so aligning yourself with a different voice, with your heart presence, is a part of this ability to ride the waves of what is coming for us, so that we feel a sense of buoyancy, kind of like a ship that actually has buoyancy in water. It rides across the waves much easier than a ship that would be, you know, unmaneuverable. So I want to leave that with you if I can, dear. I hope that that's been helpful for you. Again, I'm getting assurances. The next 3 months, it's not as complicated as I think you're making it at the moment. But I want to also recognize that's your divine design, and it's up to you to figure out how this is helping you. It's helping you. And if you want more information, then I invite you to make contact for a deeper reading. Hi, Kinesia. Thanks for telling me where you're from. I actually really love it when people share with me where they're tuning in from. It just helps me to know you better. Hi, Blue Butterfly. Pregnant with twin boys. Whew. All right, I'm going to Hey, Keza. Kisses to you. You know I love you. Thank you for saying hi. Blue Butterfly, I'm going to get to your conversation, and I find it really hilarious that my sister's on right now, who actually has twin boys. And Kerry and I can have a conversation about that later because there's a personal significance to that question. But let me tune in for you, Blue Butterfly. And I just want to acknowledge the intelligence and spirit that your actual question actually relates deeply to something that I'm exploring for myself at the moment. Different, but relative. All right, I get drawn to my rose quartz, and so love is an important part of your experience, not just with the pregnancy, but generally. I just want to reflect that you're you're a transforming soul. You've decided to come down to evolve yourself, and love is actually one of your grounding stones. So for you, you personalize love. Like love is something that needs to be between you and someone, and it's real. It's real for you, and it's a grounding stone for your own stability. I get the sense of fear that your twin sons might not have that stable, grounded love from you. Obviously you're fine with that, but you know that twin boys need a father. And you know that because I get the sense that your father may have been absent, and that he may not have actually shown up for you in the way that allowed you to support yourself through life to the extent where you really felt grounded by a love relationship from a man. So with regards to your boyfriend, I actually get a sense of he's in two worlds at the moment. So I get the sense that he's invested in you, but he's also not. And I get the sense that he wants to be there, but he's not. And a lot of this spirit is reminding me is kind of an archetypal energy, that men who haven't gone properly through initiations of manhood, they don't know how to man up, basically, for lack of a better word. And I don't want to be insensitive to men and just say man up, because that's clearly something that triggers some men. But what I do want to say is that most men, like women, need to go through initiations in order to be able to hold the weight of expectation of being a man. And if they haven't been given the opportunity of a stable father or a group of men to help them understand how to do that and to feel supported as men, then they often oscillate between this: I really want to kind of desire to support you because I believe in the idea, but I actually lack the skills to do that. And I don't know how to do that with actual physical action. So I get the sense that your insecurity or your feelings, that maybe he's not around, or maybe he's feeling not quite balanced for he's not feeling quite present, I should say, for you and for your twin sons. Partially it's because he doesn't understand what this whole paradigm is of pregnant. He doesn't understand it. It's like completely beyond him. But also he has anxiety. His anxiety is around whether or not he'll be a good father, whether or not he'll be able to show up for his twins. Like, there's a lot of pressure that he's experiencing. And I also want to reflect that I don't want you to feel like what we're saying is that his needs are more important than yours, because clearly, you have the need to be supported and you need your support, and ideally he would be that support. I get the sense he is that support. I just get the sense that his language is different to yours in reference to love. And so at the moment, a lot of your doubts is actually around that absence of grounded, stable love, um, because it doesn't feel all the way through. Thank you for sharing that. He's the overwhelmed sense is, it's normal for a man who's on the precipice of fatherhood, particularly to two at one time. It's terrifying. They have no control over the pregnancy. It's not necessarily true, but from his perspective, he has no control over the pregnancy because that's your space. And it's understandable that you would feel a lack of support because you're going through your own birthing process in giving birth to a child, two children. Will he express himself to me about his wants and desires? I got the sense, good question. It's one that you might ask him directly about it. I get the sense that he actually appreciates it when you're straight up with him. This is the thing that is the paradigm that for us sometimes is a bit uncomfortable as women. We don't necessarily, we're being conditioned actually not to make our problems other people's problems. It's quite strongly wired in a feminine kind of dialogues and paradigm. And so we usually get to a point where we bottle our feelings and sensations up and then we blurt out shit. And so when we look at the paradigm between the feminine and the masculine energy, men often have a relationship experience in the past where they've had women basically blurt out shit when they're really distressed, but they don't actually communicate on the way up to the distress. So for you, it's actually about getting much better at talking to him earlier about what it is that you want and what it is that you desire, but with an openness that doesn't suggest that that's the only thing, that there's space between you for that to happen. So try asking him questions, maybe say like, look, I kind of want this for me and I want that for me and I see our twins, and have those dialogues, and then ask him, what does he see, and gift him with a question, an open question that actually invites him to say something. And if he's not opening to that, then maybe ask more targeted questions, but just keep them open with like communication. Let's face it, communication is not a strong point, but he certainly desires to be a loving force on the planet, and you know that on some level, except when you're doubting the fact that he's going to be there for you. So I feel like there's a sense of you needing to just kind of take ownership of the fact that your insecurity in a fashion actually says a lot about your own relationship with your dad, and that your fears that you're not going to be supported like your mother wasn't supported when you were kids. Having that dialogue with him openly, I actually feel like he would be fine with it. It's true. I have feelings. I have to bring it up so he would be comfortable telling me. Yeah. Trust that instinct, Lovey. Trust that instinct. And if you have resistance, sometimes it's because maybe the timing's not right to have that conversation with him. Maybe you kind of need to. I got the term "wet the whistle," but wetting the whistle is kind of like preparing the scene. So maybe, say, hey, maybe we might hang out and have some conversations before this event happens, and actually kind of prepare him and give him kind of a little bit of option to decide to come and sit down with you and to have a conversation about, some serious stuff, and stay with a softly, gentle approach. So I hope I can leave that with you. Yeah, unfortunately, that's our parent. Our relationship with our parents very much impacts our relationship with our lovers. It's our biology. It's our design. It's the way the humans are designed. We actually incarnate sometimes in our families to heal what we call disparate energy in the family bloodlines. So, whenever it is that we're born to, well, specifically, if you've got a spiritual pathway, and this is for everybody, if you actually feel like you don't really belong into your family, which a lot of us actually get that feeling, particularly if you tune into this call. If you get that sense, there's a part of you that's incarnated specifically to do what we call clear the bloodlines. And so the spiritual path is reserved for the healers. And the healers are usually more sensitive than the other members of their family. And they usually that sensitivity usually means that when there's drama or some form of resistance or butting heads in the family, we're usually the ones that feel very impacted by that. And a lot of that experience as children, the passage of healing that actually makes us, is the passage of healing the DNA. So that conflict and that drama is actually often a pathway to the healing that the DNA is calling in, because it's asked you to be a part of the family. So it's quite a common thing. Um, I get the sense it'll be born after his birthday. Um, oh, honey, the secret is that all women are healers. Some are more so. Mothers are healers. The whole nurturance, nourishment, like if you've ever looked at a mother archetype, has so much richness. It's for me, father energy as it's upgrading too, but the maternal energy is the healer. And so if you feel any kind of desire to be deeply present with someone to assist them rise, then it's the mother archetypes, the earth mother archetype, working through us as the healer to find the balanced form, which is where we take two seemingly opposing energies and we find that harmonic resonance in between. So all women actually have that as a birthright, but some of us specifically have a soul purpose to actually be healers professionally. So how can I be added? How are you? Hi, Xena. Thank you for saying hi. I'm not sure what your question relates to in terms of who you want to be added to, but maybe you can let me know. Um, yeah, blue butterfly. The twins. Twins often come early. I get the sense that you have stubbornness in your genes, and that your sons will be the same. So, I kind of got that they're not coming out. They'll come out in their own timing, but they will definitely come out. And I feel like it's after your partner's birthday, so they know how to heal you. The in utero babies, they're magic. They're just magic. Their access to source is there, and their ability to, I mean, you're the ship that carries them, so they have a vested interest in you being calm and relaxed, and they chose you before you were born. So a lot of these soul contracts are contracted way before, not always, but in your particular case, they were always going to be born to you, and always with this father. You'll be right, honey. Just make sure with the C-section, if you can ask, there's a procedure that they can do where they actually swab the vaginal canal, and they put it over the heads of the babies with C-section. It helps with the bacterial, the immune system, um, the repair. So there's a certain amount of bacteria that when we're born through the vaginal canal is needed for our immune response and for us to actually receive the immunity, the protection that we need. But with C-section births, there's also a process that does the same thing, but you have to specifically ask for it, I believe. I actually get the sense I'm going to move on now, Lovey. I appreciate your questions. I actually feel like I'm done here. I've been online for almost an hour now, and I want to make sure that we gift some space for for digestion for what is given. All the best with the babies, darling, and thanks, guys, for tuning in and for letting me know. Um, Next time, get your questions in a bit earlier, guys, if you can. I'll try to do it this time next week as well, so around 12:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time, which I think is 6:30 Mountain time in the US. So if you don't want to remember that, then just make sure that you click the notifications, which is the bell on YouTube, and more than happy to respond to that. So, guys, I'm going to sign off now. My throat's starting to tell me that I've invested a good amount of my energy here today. So I'm going to sign off. But I thank you so much for tuning in, and tell your friends and family if you'd like them to tune into. More than happy to be of service. And check out my other videos if you feel like that resonates with you. So I'll see you online next week, hopefully. No problems for you, butterfly. I appreciate your timeliness and personal synchronicity between you and me, and the fact that my sister, who has twin boys, is actually online at the same time. So we trust that that stuff is the universe just reminding us that everything's exactly where it needs to be, and there's no point in trying to control it because things land or they don't according to the divine plan. So be well, honeys, and I'm really loving my sister's support right now, so I wanna also send you a special appreciation for that. All right, guys, until next time, I love you. See you.